Alrighty, guys, what is going on? Slaughterhouse Sports, Spencer G in the house. Okay, so we're going to review some college football. And again, there's some upset that could potentially be on the board here that no one's even thinking about. And one of those games could be at 3:30. Penn State goes to Minneapolis, goes to the Twin Cities to play the Minnesota Golden Gophers. PJ Fleck followed his entire career, followed this program at Minnesota closely. All right. And this year was a big year for them. You know, after they moved on from Tanner Morgan at quarterback and they would average like 7 or 8 wins in the old Big Ten West, they had a struggling season last year. They only won 5 games last year. This year, they got a lot better. And actually, you know, they have Harbaugh calling the plays, and also receiving coach Matt Simon, I believe that's his name, who's also calling the plays for Minnesota. And they've done a better job. And New Hampshire transfer quarterback Max Brosmer has come in there, and he's been very efficient. He's only thrown 4 interceptions, and at times he's carried this club this year. So Minnesota, when we look at the totality of their season, we're going to look at the Golden Gophers in the totality of the year, and it's going to help paint a picture because Penn State, if I were to quickly look at Penn State, they are like an 8 or a 9-1 team. I think that they're 9-1 and they have 2 games left against Minnesota and against Maryland. And Penn State won that ridiculous game against USC. So I'll talk about Penn State. Drew Allar has been fine at quarterback. Really, Tyler Warren's been one of the best players in the country, and it's kind of come out of nowhere. He was a 3-star recruit, wasn't highly touted, but this is somebody that at the catch point is incredibly strong. He's gotten a lot faster since he's got on campus. He's relentless. How Andy Kotelnicki uses him is fantastic, but really he has some of the best hands in all of college football. He's one of the toughest players in college football, one of the stronger tight ends in college football, and it's just amazing development from Warren. He's the MVP on the offensive side of the ball. On defense, Abdul Carter is an absolute menace. The Penn State defense is absolutely great. All right. If Minnesota's going to try to run the ball against Penn State, you're probably not going to do it. Okay. Because Penn State, they don't even allow 100 yards of rushing in whole games. They only allow 98 yards a game. All right. They're 5th against the run. And then Penn State against the pass is also not bad either. Okay. Penn State, overall, their defense is just salty. I mean, their defense is 13th against the pass. So overall, Penn State, if we were going to look at their defense, Penn State's defense, okay, is 5th in the country. They don't even allow 14 points a game. So statistically, right, it should be hard for Minnesota to actually move and score points. But here's how Minnesota rolls, okay? They lost to UNC. That was when UNC had Max Johnson. That was way back the first game of the year. Minnesota had every chance to win that game. That's the game that they're going to literally kick themselves, and a kicker missed the field goal in that game for them to win. So I wish they could have won that game, and UNC's turned out to be a very average ACC team. Then Minnesota got right, beat Rhode Island to a pulp, and beat Nevada, actually shut them out in 2 games. Then against Iowa, you're thinking that this is a huge game. You know, you're 2-1. Do you have any juice to you? Do you have any schedule? Or do you have any, real upside this year? They get punked in the second half against Iowa. And then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, 2-2. What's up with Fleck? Could this, really be a tough situation at the end of the year for Fleck in Minnesota? Then they go to Michigan. They're down early at Michigan. And they come back in the second half against Michigan, guys. They score 21 points in the fourth quarter, and they lose by 3. Now, many people will say that's garbage time. That's all cute that you made it look closer. They really played well. Max Brosmer found something. Then what happened with Brosmer in Minnesota is they beat USC, and USC at the time was 3-1, huge ball game. I guess we found out that USC can't really close a lot of games. But Minnesota guys, Brosmer's had a solid season. And then if we look defensively, Coy Parrish freshman phenom safety for Minnesota. Like, could be the next, Antoine Winfield or Tyler Nubin. Like, Minnesota's had all these safeties. So they beat USC. They rushed the field. Bam. Now we're back on track. Then they beat UCLA in a hard-fought game on the road, right? Get a bye week. They play Maryland at home. They explode against Maryland and kill Maryland 48-23. So at this point, Minnesota's 5-3. They're 4-1. So really beating USC was a really big deal. Going on the road, beating UCLA, beating Maryland. Then they go on the road to Illinois. Illinois is a decent club. They win that game 25-17. So Minnesota, you really could look at Minnesota as a solid Big Ten team. They really could be 7-3, but instead Rutgers clipped them. And Rutgers has been playing better ball. Like, Rutgers just beat Minnesota. So they caught Kaliaknanis, the old Afin Kaliaknanis. They're old. The guy who used to be their quarterback. He got revenge on Minnesota. All right? So the season's been a windy seesaw of a season, but Minnesota still has a couple punches left. I think this is a very tight-knit team. Like, Brosmer took the guys down to Atlanta to throw the football with them. They throw the ball at Minnesota more than they've ever thrown the ball for Minnesota. All right, so Minnesota, in terms of their passing, which is pretty incredible, they're ranked 22nd in terms of how often they throw the ball in the air. They throw the ball 60% of the time. Their completion percentage is 65% for Brosmer. All right, so it's an efficient kind of passing game. They want to win the time of possession. The over-under in this game probably shouldn't be high. And Penn State's getting 2 touchdowns. But in this spot, Penn State has covered, and James Franklin is known as a covering machine. Against West Virginia, they had better talent. They covered. Against Wisconsin, right? Better talent. They covered. Against Washington, they won 35-7. So Penn State, along the lines of scrimmages, guys, Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, Drew Allar, Tyler Warren, the defensive side of the football, the D-line in particular, like, Penn State's going to have the better players in this game, but Minnesota at home, 3:30 environment, this thing's going to be juiced. This environment's going to be juiced, and I think you're going to get Minnesota dialed in off of a bye. Penn State's had a couple of games where they've gotten right. Everyone's thinking about that home playoff game. This is ripe for Minnesota to absolutely shock the world at 3:30. This is the game that Fleck gets up for. These are the games, again, that Minnesota has circled on their calendar. When they won in 2019, guys, that 10-2 team that ended up winning the Gator Bowl with Tyler Johnson, Rashad Bateman, just a legendary club. You also had Carter Coughlin. Man, did I love that team. I'm even missing you had Cashman. That team was so much fun. I think Ibrahim was a part of that club. That team in 2019 was the greatest team ever. And when they beat Penn State at home, that was the best win of the Fleck era. This year, beating USC, rushing the field was incredibly exciting. If he beats Penn State and USC in 1 year, boy, oh boy, there are good times coming for Minnesota football. All right, so this is a huge game for Fleck. I'm going to take Minnesota outright. I'm actually going to do it. All right, I think that this is the spot. I've been looking at the spot to really see an upset for Penn State, and Minnesota can absolutely send Penn State home from the playoff. This is going to be a wild, wild result, okay? Just this game. I'm going to take Minnesota in this spot. They're going to get to Drew Allar, and their defense is going to turn up. I'm going to take Minnesota in this game 23-20. I'm going to take Minnesota holding on late for a victory, and they storm the field, and it's going to be magnificent. It really could be. Let me know what you guys think. I'm picking a little upset special here. Minnesota outright. Row the boat.